We have one last prep step before we put all of these parts together, and that is we have to cut a little slit to go towards this hole, because the little connector here, plug for the light, obviously won't fit through that hole. So if we cut just a little slit, we'll be able to work the wire in there. So I'm just going to cut mine kind of at a diagonal. I'll keep my fingers out of the way and just take my craft knife and kind of go right through there. And you want to use a craft knife for this because we want that slit to be as unobtrusive as possible. There we go. And then continue through the paper. So now I have a little opening there. So let's just talk about how this is going to go together. We know that the light is going to feed through this hole in the top and then go down into our channel here, and that where we've measured so that where this cord comes out will be in between where the top of the head is and this space right here at the top of the channel. Now we've seen how the head goes on and slides on, and we have two gluing surfaces on the lower jaw, these two pieces here, and I just want to point out exactly where they're going to go. There's an angle, the angle on the inside right here will match up with the angle here, and the back edge of this will continue this line so that it's a smooth line from a connection between the head support and this piece of the jaw, so that when we put the back of the head on, it will flow continuously down here. Now also when we put the jaw on here, let's see if I can just put it on here for a second, and we get it in place. In a perfect world, these back corners of the lower jaw will be even with the bottom of the box. If they're not exactly, that's not a problem, but that is what we've measured for, and hopefully that's what will happen. Now, this comes up at an angle. I don't know if you can see right here. There's more of this jaw showing right here because we want the jaw is meant to hang down a little bit from the angle of the base of the head. So I'll start to put this together by taking my light and feeding it through the hole here, and then getting the box over here. I don't have the jaw connected yet. It's just easier to do it this way, I think. Just kind of work it down until we get to where the cord is just above the paper. So now that I have this to the point where the cord is right above the paper, I'm just going to swing the whole light around a little bit just because that cord is coming out of the bottom, and then I can feed it through this slit and push it that little further distance it needs to go. You want to be a little ginger here. So now the cord is inside of the head there, and I'll just kind of bring it here on top of the box, and then I'm just going to swing my lower jaws into position down here. Just kind of take a look and make sure everything looks good. So now that I have the light the way I want it, I'm just going to swing the lower jaw out of the way, put some wet glue down on the bottom on each side, and then just kind of gently pull this apart to set it on top of that glue, and then make sure you get everything lined up and in the proper position, and then hold it to dry. So I've checked that I have everything aligned properly, and now I'm just holding with some pressure for a few minutes till that glue can get set up. I'm going to leave mine for a good hour, if not more, because in the next step we're going to be putting some good pressure on this when we put the back of the head and the base of the jaw on. So make sure that it is good and dry and cured before you move on. So now that the glue has dried on our lower jaw connections down here, we can reinforce where we had to make this slit up here at the top by pulling apart that chipboard and adding some wet glue. And then also I'm going to just put a little piece, this is a little piece of cardstock that I've cut a notch in, and I'll put it just on top of that ledger strip there, just as a little added reinforcement right there. Hopefully you can see that there. And then to take care of this slit that we have on the tab, I'm just cutting about a 2-inch or so, 1 3/4 piece of score tape that I'll put on the inside like that. So that'll take care of our slit that we made up there. And after we get everything done, we'll also put a little decoration around the base of this so that it will show even less. So we're getting close to the time that we will install the back of the head here. So and when we do that, we'll first put it in without any decorative paper, and then we'll put decorative paper on after it's installed. So we want to use the back of the head as a template to cut the piece of paper that will eventually be installed. I want to hold it back a 1/2 inch from the bottom edge here, and I'll just extend these two legs, if you would, down to that 1/2 inch, and then the rest I'll just trace exactly around and cut that out precisely. So I'll get that accomplished now. So now we're ready to work on the back of the head, and we want to start by doing a little dry fit and make sure that everything's going to work well. And I've got my head shape here, and the notch is on the right side, it's over here, and we cut it so it's flexible in this direction, and we just want to kind of give it just a little bit of bend so that it's used to thinking about wanting to follow this curve of the head here. And then we'll feed that cord through that hole, and the cord is coming down along the side of the box, and then just kind of work this into behind the paper here and get it to fit into that channel that is caused by the support piece we put onto the head. So just kind of hold it up here at the top, and we're aiming for, remember when we drew this 6-inch line, that this piece on the back of the head should be coming up to that 6-inch line. That's our goal. And then we'll curve down here, and what you want to check is the length down here at the bottom. It cannot be any longer than that lower jaw. And if it's a little shorter, it's not a problem, but you do not want it longer. And mine is fitting just right, but if yours is hanging over and you're sure that you've got everything up here just at the top just right, you'll want to just trim off a little bit on those bottom edges there. So once you're satisfied with the dry fit, we can go ahead and glue this in place. We'll run glue along that channel along the back of the head, and then also we'll put glue on the back, hopefully you can see that here, on the back of the jaw pieces there. And then we can run glue along the edge of the head support that's attached to the box as well. Now, another reason for putting this score tape up here at the top is that we'll run our glue, but then we'll cut some tabs here just at the top so that we can use the score tape to hold that top of the head in place while we work on the rest of it, because it does have even though we've got it so that it's flexible here, as we work down, if we don't have this top attached, it may want to spring off. And I think will be good as long as we just attach that top. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and remove that score tape backing on that piece that we just put up here at the top. And then make sure you don't cut these slits. That we only need to cut them about, I would say half an inch or so apart. Make sure they don't go down any further, see if I can turn this upside down here, than the edge of that chipboard there. So rest your tip of your scissors, don't let it go past that edge of that chipboard there. My scissors had something on it. And we'll just cut right on the edge of where that score tape was. So now we've got some little tabs up here at the top that we can use to secure this. So I'm just kind of bringing it out of the way. I have the cord in the hole there, and I have it, I don't know if you can see that, it's coming along the side of the head there. It's not on the top here, it's along the side. So I'll run my glue and then we'll start putting it together. So I've run my glue. I'm just pulling on this cord to get the slack out of it. I'm going to start at the top once I get it around the paper here. So I've got it in that channel, and I have those tabs holding it in right there at the top. And now I can follow it down and keep it in the channel there. And then I'll repeat that over on this other side. Make sure you get it in the channel and not just on top of the edge of the chipboard head there. You can use the paper to kind of pull it away a little bit so that you're sure you're in that channel. Then I'll just use a piece of painter's tape down here at the bottom to hold the bottoms in place. And then I can make sure that the rest is staying where I want it to be. I'm using some Scotch Quick Dry adhesive, so it sets up pretty quickly. And just keep putting some pressure on there till that glue sets up. So once the glue has set up on the back of the head, we're ready to fold these tabs down from this decorative paper, and just run your finger along here so that you see where it wants to go. And then down here near the side, this is pretty straight, so I probably don't need to make too many slits until you can see it starts to ruffle in here. And then I'll probably make these about a 1/4 of an inch apart or so. So I'm just going to take my scissors and kind of let the tip butt up against the chipboard like this. I would say about every quarter inch, maybe a little bit more or less. You can kind of judge it. And once I get down to where it's straight, I won't make any more slits. And I'll repeat that on the other side. And then I'm going to leave this straight part down here for right now, but for these others up here, I'll just use some wet glue to stick them down. You can just kind of open them up a little bit, put some glue on them. Whoops, didn't mean to put it on the straight part. And then just take your time and get that nice edge. Make sure you don't get any glue on your fingers while you're doing this. Just kind of roll them towards the back of the head. Now on the straight part, you can put some score tape on the back of it if you want to put it down. Down here I already have a little bit, because this is where I had to patch my piece of decorative paper. And of course you'll want to remove your blue tape here before you stick those down. So I'll do that on this side and then finish up on this side as well. For the lower jaw base, we can go ahead and cover one side with pattern paper, and I've chosen this lighter yellow, the same as I'm using for the back of the head. And then for the base piece, we just want to trace it out and cut it to size, but don't attach it. So that's what we're going to do for the lower jaw base. And then this is the inside mouth, and what I've done for this piece is that I have stepped over an inch, and then I scored it every 1/8 of an inch for the middle 3-inch section, so that I have an unscored piece on the two ends. And then the paper I'm going to use to cover that is this green paper. It's actually the reverse of the yellow paper, and when I do that I'll just kind of curve it a little bit to begin with, just because this gets a pretty significant curve in there, so I don't want to just attach it flat. So when you put the score tape on here, just put one end down and then just kind of roll it onto the front. And we're doing this, either the side that wants to curve is the outside. So I'll go ahead and get that covered as well. Now we're ready to dry fit the inside of the mouth. So I'll just slip this piece up inside of here. And the corners here kind of butt up against the corners of the jaw, And then on the bottom, we'll fit in the base of the lower jaw because it will rest on that. And that base just sits flush with the lower jaw there. So that's how this is going to go in. And I'm just kind of checking to make sure that this curve looks good on the bottom here, and that the teeth, of course, will come in here, but nothing is showing, and that's looking pretty good there. So I will take this out, and then we can actually put it in. Before I put my glue on here, I did remove the score tape backing from this bottom tab here. And now this will fit with the side that already has the pattern paper going towards the inside of the mouth. And it's meant to be a little short here, so don't worry about that. And then just let that glue set up for a minute. And once the glue is set up, we can attach our tabs. After I got past the straight section, I made some slits about every 1/4 inch, 3/16 of an inch, and I did that carefully since it's sticky now that the backing was removed. And now I'll just kind of gently go around and bend all those tabs so we get a nice clean finish along that edge. Once the tabs are down, I'll go ahead and give it a good burnish. I'm just supporting it here with my hand. You probably can see I've got it kind of sitting in a box here just to protect the light and the top of the head. I don't want to put it directly on my work surface. So now I've got that done. Now we can flip it back this way. And to glue the mouth, we'll put glue along these edges. Here, let me point. The edges of the box, like on the corners here. And I think if you put some good glue on there, I'm not planning on putting any glue on the bottom so that I don't want to risk making a mess of the glue down there. So I'm just going to run some glue along these two corners, and I think you can see I've got a pretty heavy bead of glue there, and now I'm just going to carefully work around that so I don't engage it prematurely, and put the mouth in, slide it up, and then get it centered here. Then you can reach in and kind of push it towards the bottom so that it sits nice and flush on the bottom down here. And then just give it some pressure to engage that glue that we put in. And look that it's staying pretty symmetrical. Now just for some added security, I think you can see this here, I just took my fine line gluer and went right along the edge where the upper mouth meets that inside of that jaw piece on both sides there. Hopefully you can see that little bead of glue there. And now let that thoroughly dry. Now we're ready to cover the back of the head with this paper that we previously cut out. I did some inking around that, and I also inked around the edge of the headpiece itself. And then here, when I put my score tape on, I put one piece at the top that's just about a 1/2 inch wide, and then I filled in the rest. I have my 1/2 inch tabs down here with different tape as well. And by putting this one piece on here at the top, when we slide it on, we can just remove this one piece up here of the backing, and we don't have to worry about the rest of this sticking prematurely while we get it worked around. So make sure you come around your wire over here and that things are looking straight. Now, don't worry if you've got a gap here between the box and the paper. There's going to be another piece of chipboard that comes in there. And so I'm just kind of looking at the part that I have not removed the tape backing from here on the sides. And once I'm satisfied with how that is, I'll go ahead and attach this top piece. And then I can lift this up and remove the rest of the backing and put it down. I gave this piece a good burnish, and then I'll come and remove the backing from the little tabs down here at the bottom. I think I'll angle this in a little bit on each side and hit that with a little bit of ink before I wrap it. And then finally our last step will be to remove the tape backing and put this piece of paper that we cut to go underneath the jaw here in place. And before you do that, make sure you've inked this edge if you want to, and ink the edge of the paper as well. Now, to go around the base of the light here, I've cut two pieces. I've cut one gear. This gear came from this Thinlit die set called Gearhead, and both of these are about 3/4 of an inch. I cut that gear, and then from some of the orange paper in the 6x6 pad, I cut a 3/4 inch circle. I backed both of them with score tape, and I'll put the gear, attach the gear to the circle. And then I want to punch a 1/4 inch hole in the center, and because this is kind of small and hard to hold on to, I'll just put it onto a post-it here, and then I can use my 1/4 inch hole punch to punch a hole in the center. And then we'll cut a little slit right next to one of the spokes of the gear. And then the 1/4 inch hole may not quite be big enough, so before you remove the score tape backing, just try it out around here. And if it needs to be, and that hole needs to be enlarged, just nibble at it with your hole punch until it's big enough to easily go around there. And then once you've done that, remove the backing, and I'll put that slit kind of towards near the bottom so it's not quite so noticeable, but it's not very noticeable since it's right along the edge of a spoke. So now here's the head to this stage. We obviously have some finishing to do with the eyes and the teeth, but we'll do that at a later time. And then finally, I've just stapled folded over and stapled on some of this really lightweight foam material, just something to kind of protect the tubing and the paint job while we work on the rest of the project.